What's happening, guys? JD at JD's Custom Buggies. I just unloaded this off the trailer. It's got to get race prepped. We have another race in about a week at Bartow MX. It's part of the MBX Mini Buggy Cross and I4MX series down here in Florida. I've had people ask me about builds that I do and maybe about posting videos, so just kind of take the quick opportunity just to do a quick walk around. Just to kind of show some details of this build. This was built at the end of 2017 for a New Year's Eve race. It didn't go so well there. We actually had an engine problem. Had a little bit of a defective motor part, so it didn't really run that well, but we rebuilt the motor, and it's been cleaning house ever since. My wife drives this, Amber Plakiotis. You can see her on the YouTube videos of the races. But this is her machine. It was originally a Crossfire, Tomerlin Crossfire 150. I got the cabin down, made a single seater. She's always had Crossfires, so I had this chassis. I figure I would build her a Crossfire. So we slimmed it down, made it a single seat. The entire front end of this thing is all fabricated here. A-arms, tie rods, spindles, and then we use a aluminum rack and pinion that we usually put on most of our builds. If you look at some of the other build videos, you'll see that same rack and pinion. It's kind of cool about this, something I've incorporated into a couple of my builds, but it does have caster adjustment with this dog bone here. So it works like a tie rod. You break loose the jam nuts, and you can actually lengthen and shorten this, and what that does is it takes the top arm and moves it either forward or backwards, and that would change the caster of the machine. The more you bring the arm backwards, the more straight line stability it has. The more you roll it forward, it will tend to be a little more turny. A little more, give you more reaction when you turn. The original pedals were incorporated in this, and this is kind of a version of our slide rod kit that I built into the buggy, of course. So I wanted to center the pedals. So basically the same premise. Pulls a cable that operates the slide carb. This buggy does have reverse incorporated into it. She likes reverse, so I put reverse on it. She did run like the first couple of races without reverse, but then I got it squared away for her. This thing was built under a complete rush. The steering column is stock Crossfire. Steering shaft is stock Crossfire. We've already gone through one steering wheel that she bent. It was from a XRS 150. It was the fancy steering wheel with the horn button in the middle. She had to jump pretty hard and ended up tweaking the steering wheels, so we swapped it out for this Pro Armor unit that's basically for a razor. Also from Pro Armor, we have a 4-point safety harness. Very comfortable and easy to get in and out of. I've actually put one on my Yerf dog, just because, again, easy to get, easy to use, and it's good and comfortable and fits well. What's different about this build from any of my other builds are basically the use of these side panels here. I wanted to put side panels on and kind of eliminate the weight of putting extra bars for rigidity. Wow, can I speak? And it kind of works out really well. Makes the chassis nice and rigid. And the other thing that we did while I was at it with the sheet metal work, built a wing and a roof for it too. The roof was actually, once I welded in the tabs for the roof, I, from back to front, basically bolted it down to the tabs, drilled the holes, and yes, it ended up being nice because it had this nice dome shape to it. But it is under pressure. If you take these bolts out, this thing will flop back up. But it probably does help as far as keeping the cage nice and rigid also at the top. Worked out really well. The wing, I had different ideas for the wing. The original idea didn't work out, which was basically going to be, I'm going to bend this, I was going to bend it in a brake, but the brake that I had is really nothing special. It's a Tractor Supply sheet metal brake. And the aluminum that I was using to make the wing was thicker. So what I ended up doing is just cutting out the pieces separate, using an aluminum angle. When we painted this, because it's aluminum, we had to etch primer it. before we put the paint on, otherwise the paint wouldn't stick to the aluminum. The other cool thing is that we countersunk the tank, which was a cool forethought, but pretty crappy afterthought. What happened was, being as it was our first time on some of these tracks and not seeing these tracks, the swing arm with the original shocks that I had on here, the swing arm would actually come up and hit the tank, and there's still probably a battle scar there's a dent, which brings us to the shocks that I ended up changing out for the ones that are on it now. But we have broken off, this is like our second or third tank, we have broken off a couple petcocks till we got it straight. You really do not know how much beating these buggies take until you put them on a motocross track and basically run it as hard as you can. The shocks, we'll get to that next. The shocks, I had used some ATV shocks. I had Raptor shocks on front Raptor shocks on the back, and Polaris Podium shocks from a Predator or Outlaw. They were on the front, which is actually a pretty good swap for most Crossfires. It rode well, it was cushy, but again, once this thing got airborne and came down, it was kind of hard. So these are Fox 2.0 air shocks. There are no springs. The air pressure actually acts as the spring. These units, this is the third buggy that we've owned that these shocks have made its way to. It started out, there's a build, if you go back through some videos or some of the forums and whatnot, there's a build called the Crosshammer that I did, which was actually the front half of a Crossfire and the rear half of a Hammerhead 250, so it had independent rear and a 250cc motor in it, and I'd ordered these shocks for it. So from there, we bought a BMS 800V twin, and I ended up putting these shocks on that for a while. Had to make new relocation brackets for the shocks because they were a little bit short, but the shocks that are on the back of this one were actually on the front of the BMS 800, and the shocks that were on the front of this were on the back of the BMS 800. So after we had the issues with breaking gas tanks and everything, I decided to give this a try, and it's worked out pretty well. As far as the motor, basically standard to the rules of MBX. No machine work is allowed, so it has to be a drop-in big bore kit. Currently we're running the SSPG 61mm drop-in in this, and basically a stock Howitt motor. We use the Howitt gear sets that are stock on Crossfires and Yerf Dogs. Pipe is one of ours. The paint never lasts on our pipes, but it gets burned off. But the pipe performs really well, but this pipe was built for this guy. The other thing is, again, another JD's Custom Buggy thing is this use of the Mikuni VM 26606 slide carb. Again, with the slide rod mechanism. The only thing I have to catch up on is my wiring job. I slapped it together. We did it basically midnight before the first race, and it's one of those projects that I keep looking at and want to redo and have to redo, and just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I have some ideas what I want to do with this wiring, and we'll get rid of this mess after this last race. Goes through a velocity stack, and we use a 2-inch unifilter air filter. This thing is plenty dirty, and it's got plenty of battle scars on it right now as it currently sits. Wheels, we're using ITP A6 Pros, 10-inch wheels front and rear. What I'm running on this right now is decided to give this a shot. They're actually ITP whole shots. We're running a 23-inch tire in the front. Bit of an experiment, but I've had good luck running 23-inch tires on Crossfires before, so we figured I would just try it again. And then on the rear, it's 20-inch ITP whole shot tire. Tires have held up really well. The other thing that I incorporated in this guy was I actually use Honda four-wheeler hubs. There's a certain year four-wheeler that I like the hubs off of, and they work really well. You have to do some bearing changes and some seal changes, but they actually work with the spindles that I've got. Had to make a relocation kit or relocation bracket for the caliper to move it over. But what's nice about using these hubs is that compared to a stock buggy hub that came on a Crossfire, which is basically the same size rotor that comes on Hammerheads and Trailmasters and whatnot, this rotor is a lot bigger. The hubs are a lot lighter also. I almost want to say 1.5 pounds lighter per hub. So basically this is the first purpose-built MBX buggy that I have ever done. I'm currently working on a second one. I'll be retiring my Europe dog after this last race. It's just after 10 years of beating on it, it's quitting on me. So I don't want to have to chase it with a welder every week. So I'm currently building another version of this for myself, and then we're on to the next season. We're going to take a little bit of a break during the summer of 2019 and fall of 2019. We're planning on doing one race with the i4MX Mega Series in the fall, hopefully, for a little test and tune. And then next February, back onto our regular i4MX Summer Series, as they call it, which runs February to July of 2020. So I hope this kind of gives everybody a cool close-up look at this thing. I know I've been posting pictures of it on Facebook all over the place, and between what I post and just race pictures and whatnot. So that's it. So you guys have a good night. I will talk to you next time. See ya.